Joe Gibbs Racing adds a major boost to Ty Gibbs and the 54 team for the rest of the regular season. Plus, how much did Rick Ware make on those charters he just sold? Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well on this Monday. We made it, y'all. We made it through Monday. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis here at Breaking Bob. Still coming down, honestly, from Saturday night in the Atlanta Echo Park race where Chase Elliott won, and one of the better races we've seen in the next gen era, at least if you ask me. But got a lot to get into, and some news that kind of got out before the race weekend on Friday from Echo Park, where Kyle Larson talked about the double once again. We can never get rid of the cloud of the double, it feels like, and we finally might be able to put a bow on it, it sounds like, as Kyle Larson was talking about his future for the 2026 double. Could we be seeing it? Not quite. NBC's Dustin Long talked to Larson and had the report about it, and Larson said, quote, "I feel like I've made it known that I wouldn't do the double again. I get asked about it all the time. It's logistically just too tough." And he's saying that after 2 years of understanding those logistics firsthand, where multiple weather delays, media obligations, back and forth from Charlotte to Indianapolis, North Wilkesboro to Indianapolis. That travel, he said, wasn't actually that bad, but it's just draining on you, that the media obligations, especially for the Indy 500. You add all of that, plus he had that incident, of course, where Scott McLaughlin spun in the pace laps, and then Larson did the whole thumbs up to him. Even that best driver in the world comment comparing himself to Max Verstappen in all driving assets. Larson just looked like he might have bitten a little bit more than he could chew in this Indy double, and not a shock, even though we probably expected it. It was already a 2-year deal with Hendrick and Arrow McLaren, but he's saying the quiet part out loud finally. And although he put the squash on the 2026 Indy 500, we could see Kyle Larson at Indy down the line in the month of May, just probably after his NASCAR career is over. He said, quote, "I will have FOMO from running the Indy 500. Hopefully someday I can run that again, but I don't have any desire to do the double again. It didn't go well the last 2 years." And all the obstacles I talked about, plus in 2024, that original double that Larson attempted, he had the waiver issues with NASCAR where they held that eligibility over a week for him, saying, "Oh, well, you didn't show up to the Coke 600, even though you attempted to try and get there. You made the Indy 500 the priority." It really made him a good example in 2025, making him a company man. And I understand it from both sides there, but I think for Kyle Larson, it just seemed like the fun had been sucked out of this double attempt, especially in the year 2 attempt. There wasn't a ton of hype, but multiple spins leading up in practice and qualifying. It just a perfect storm where I think that it's really tough, and almost I want to say that an IndyCar driver is the one that really needs to really be the one attempting it, because of how much obligations in the month of May there are for the IndyCar side. Then they can jump into a NASCAR side, not jump in, but it's a little bit easier of a learning curve probably than all the obligations that come with the Indy 500. If you're already an IndyCar driver, you're already doing that, then you can do the Coke 600. It's just a different. So it's not easy either way. The logistics are tough, like Kyle Larson said, but we can squash it for 2026. And right now, we'll see if there's any plans for the future with any side IndyCar or NASCAR driver doing the double, but none right now. Now let's talk about the fallout from Atlanta on Saturday night. No, it's not that there aren't any perfect brackets left. 0, according to NASCAR. And anyone shocked? Not really. I'm not. You're starting at Atlanta out of any track, a drafting style track. Clearly, it's harder to pick a perfect first round in the NASCAR bracket compared to a March Madness bracket tournament challenge. Who would have guessed it? If you started Atlanta, almost everyone. But no, we're going to talk about the Ty Gibbs news coming out of the pit box on Saturday night. TNT reported it immediately on the broadcast that Chris Gabehart, the Joe Gibbs Racing competition director, former crew chief with Denny Hamlin, was sitting on the 54 box and was lending a hand towards new rookie crew chief Tyler Allen. Of course, it's no secret everyone looked at the 54 as probably that 4th car at Joe Gibbs Racing. Between a rookie crew chief and Tyler Allen, you've got Ty Gibbs, who's still winless in his 3rd career season of the Cup Series now. The speed's been there the last few weeks. I finished in the top 15, I believe, each of the last 3 or 4 races. Led laps at Mexico, led laps last week at Atlanta. Was right on the heels of Denny Hamlin in the same strategy race at Michigan for the win, but still winless in these races. And so they're adding Chris Gabehart to the pit box full time for the regular season. Now, he's not going to be the crew chief. He's just lending a hand toward Tyler Allen. He said Allen's still going to be the one pushing the buttons, but wild to see. And Gabehart said, quote, "There are a lot of things I could do throughout the week, but the decision was made once we got 3 of the 4 locked in to put all we could behind the 54 to try to get it in too. And when you have a bench that's got assets on it, you use it. That's part of it. So it's one more set of eyes and ears and kind of an ability to put emphasis behind a decision that will be difficult in other situations with Tyler pushing the button. this is an ad. It's not a change. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. And then you have your two bosses working together while you're looking up ahead of you. It's never good corporate speak, but no, Ty Gibbs is safe. You have Tyler Allen as a rookie crew chief. I do think he's safe, but you look at the last few weeks, there's been speed in that 54 team, and every expectation for Joe Gibbs Racing is to get all four cars into the playoffs. It's going to be the same thing with Alex Bowman in that 48 with Hendrick Motorsports now that Chase Elliott's locked himself into the playoffs. They just might not be as vocal about it, and you won't see it just as egregious with Chris Gabehart sitting on the box. But this is not anything shocking, although I think it's really good for both driver and crew chief. For Tyler Allen, he's a rookie crew chief, to learn from Chris Gabehart sitting right next to you, getting to bounce the ideas and race strategy off of him right there. That's invaluable experience. And for Ty Gibbs, it also has Chris Gabehart in your ear. That's a calming experience, or a calming presence, I should say, for Ty Gibbs, who just seems like it's just struggling the last year or two. And I know there's been personal issues, and the speed has been there the last few weeks especially, but for the equipment he's in, it's very much a noticeable gap between the third and fourth Joe Gibbs Racing car. Historically, everyone says that it's tough to run a four-car team. The sweet spot is three. But regardless, Ty Gibbs is talented enough that he's for 100 and something now in his career. Eventually, he needs to get one of these wins to lock himself into the playoffs, and having Chris Gabehart sitting next to Tyler Allen is massive. And finally, our main story I want to talk about before we wrap this video up. I teased at the beginning of this video. You probably clicked on it from the thumbnail. Just last week, Ware Racing announced that they would be selling their racing team to TJ Pusher. Now, he's the former founder at Spire Motorsports with Jeff Dickerson. He was bought out just a few years ago, quietly hanging around in the motorsports world, and then just splashes out of nowhere. Again, while Ware Racing is in the middle of this lawsuit selling a charter to Legacy Motor Club, now TJ Pusher will be the controlling owner of Ware Racing moving forward. If you're like me, you waited to watch Door Bumper Clear today. Of course, on Dirty Mo Media, it's Freddie Kraft, and now Ware Racing competition director Tommy Baldwin. And if anyone knows the situation, it's going to be that man in the building there. And didn't talk too much about it, but toward the end, they did mention it. Now, two notable things we want to talk about. Let's talk about Tommy Baldwin's first. He did confirm that Cody Ware will be the driver through the end of next season, through 2026, which now I'm putting the tinfoil hat on. It makes me think that, they're already leasing that charter out to RFK next year. TJ Pusher is probably allowing Rick Ware's operations to stay as scheduled through 2026. It's almost a 2-year plan for RWR's, that alliance with RFK. So Ware Racing will keep Cody Ware, or whatever they're going to call it. They're going to keep Cody Ware in that 51 through next season, it sounds like. But the main part I want to talk about was Freddie Kraft then following it up with saying there's rumors around the garage that those two charters sold for roughly 9 figures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. That's a lot of money. That's actually over 100 million, give or take. So over 100 million, roughly an estimate, at least 50 million per charter. My goodness, Rick Ware did pretty well for himself, getting out in the game with 100 million at least in change from TJ Pusher. And for TJ Pusher, what an investment, I guess. You got some cars that aren't great in the charter standings, but in the world of NASCAR, it's an investment. These charters are supposed to be churning up money, and you see all these teams with private equity funds, Legacy Motor Club, one of those, of course, and sounds like this could be one of those also with TJ Pusher on the side, leading the charge to fund these ownership groups to buy these charters and hoping these investments pay off down the line, almost like a franchise in a sport. I hate to compare stick and ball, but NASCAR loves to do that, and that's what these franchises are. But then you got to think with the lawsuit going on with NASCAR versus 2311 Front Row, and just the way they've even talked recently in the last few months, is it wise to invest that much money in a charter system that, who's to say in 7-8 years they get rid of? Something to note, but TJ Pusher not worried about throwing around at least $100 million, it sounds like, for Ware Racing. We've got that, plus a big shakeup with Chris Gabehart on the 54 team for Ty Gibbs through the regular season, and Kyle Larson, no more double, but maybe an Indy 500 down the line once he's out of NASCAR, it sounds like. If you're new here, of course, hit that like button. Subscribe to Breaking Bob. It helps me out a ton if you like what you saw. And I'll see you for whatever comes through the NASCAR vine this week. We've got Chicago Street Course this week. Of course, SVG probably the favorite once again, just like Mexico. But we'll see what happens through the week and whatever comes in the NASCAR world. Stay tuned for more. Appreciate you watching.